and that is that the Labor Party's position on this particular bill is completely out of step with community expectations. 39% of child sex offenders convicted federally last year didn't spend a single day in jail. Now, the community expect better than that. We understand that as the Morrison government, and that's why this bill is here to correct that and to make a difference. And yet, for the Labor Party to stand there and for the member for Isaacs to, rather than support this bill, to try and give the government a lecture on parliamentary process, just shows that their rhetoric that their actions do not match their rhetoric. The member for Fowler, as well, raised a number of issues in defence of Labor's position not to do anything on this particular issue, even though there was a lot of platitudes, and I accept that Labor's platitudes were heartfelt. But the member for Fowler raised the issue that somehow mandatory sentencing might remove the incentive for people to cooperate. Well, we know that the legislation deals with that, and if he'd bothered to read the legislation rather than simply to seek an arbitrary reason to justify Labor's indefensible position, he would know that. The fact is that this bill retains discretion for the judiciary to reduce a mandatory minimum penalty by up to 25%, to allow for recognition of early guilty pleas and cooperation with law enforcement. So quite clearly there is still an incentive within this bill for people to either plead guilty or to cooperate with law enforcement agencies. There is also significant discretion remaining in this bill for the courts, and that is what is going to prevent the idea that Labor and the spectre that Labor keeps raising that somehow this will lead to a situation where juries are less likely to convict. Courts will still retain their important power to set non-parole periods for child sex offenders as they see fit. And importantly, law enforcement officers and prosecutors will retain their broad discretions regarding whether or not to charge or prosecute individuals. But the point is that when these individuals are found to have undertaken these most heinous of acts against children in our community, acts which create victims for life, we will not have the situation where the perpetrator, and as has been the case for last year, where 39% of perpetrators who were convicted did not spend a day in jail. Their victims are affected by these crimes, and their families are affected by these crimes for the rest of their days. And yet, the idea that 39% of child sex offenders convicted federally didn't spend a single day in jail is so out of step with community expectations that we must seek to rectify it urgently, which is what this bill does. So I'm disappointed that despite the platitudes of Labor members opposite, they can't bring themselves to actually join with the government to take action on this important issue. Because, Mr Deputy Speaker, our children must be protected from the dangers of sexual abuse. We must do everything in our power that we can to address the inadequacies of our criminal justice system. There must be severe penalties on those individuals who seek to commit these heinous crimes. We not only believe this on this side of the chamber, but we are willing to act so that we can stand hand on heart as fathers and mothers to say that we have done everything to keep our children safe.